Welcome to Overwhelmed to Overcomer podcast with coach, encourager, and strategist Anna McLaughlin. If you're a Christian woman who has big dreams rooted in an even bigger God, but most days those dreams feel completely out of reach, trust me, I get it. As a homeschooling mama of 4, entrepreneur, investor, and all-around wearer of many hats, I am right there with you. And yet the Lord invites us to live out our God-given purpose now in the midst of the madness. So let's explore together how we can know our calling and walk in it today with clarity, with courage, with each other. It's time for you to live the life you love and love the life you live. Let's do this thing. Welcome to this next episode of Overwhelmed to Overcomer. I am so excited to introduce this next guest to you. Heather M. Day is here. She's written a beautiful book called Money and Spirit. And we're going to talk about how to live life under the covering of the Spirit, stewarding well our financial resources. We're going to go so many different ways. Heather, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Anna. It's so good to be here. I'm glad to be here.
It's great to have you. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself to kick things off?
Yeah, so my name is Heather. I live in the Chicagoland area, and I'm a pastor's kid, so I've grown up in the church all my life. I have never known a time where I didn't understand that Jesus loved me and I loved him too. So I've grown up there. I am a mom to 2 kids. Robert is my husband, and we have an 18-year-old daughter who I'm working through all the feelings of graduating right now. And I've got a 13-year-old son who keeps me on my toes. And then during the day, I am a director of marketing for Barnabas Foundation, where we help generous Christians give to their favorite ministries in ways that honor God and provide for their families. So I'm busy, but happily busy. That's what I love to be.
Oh, I love that. You are bearing much fruit.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so tell me where this book was born. What's the birthplace and the origin of this book?
So this book started at Barnabas Foundation. We received a grant, and we received a grant specifically to help local churches. And we had one of those meetings. It was my boss and me and one other person. We had those meetings, and I'm sure y'all have been at one time or another where it was just going nowhere. We were talking about how we could use these funds that would be most effective, and we got a lot of bad ideas out of the way. And my boss did this thing that is not uncharacteristic of him. He does this often. He literally just stopped the meeting and prayed and said, God, these are your funds. This is your ministry. We want what you want to do with this. So we need your wisdom and your direction. And as he was praying, this idea, even as he was praying, started to form. And I said, I know somebody, and I have this idea. And long story short, it started out as a Bible study for local church, and over time morphed into a book. But all of it really was born out of prayer. And the reason why, as the book began to develop, that it felt natural to me is because it also mirrored my personal experience. So even though I had the opportunity to write this for my work, I was really able to share from my personal life and how I had seen God at work once I made the decision to surrender my financial life to Him.
Mm. So talk to me about that. I have this theory that the teacher becomes the student, right? Like as we're looking to offer something to the world, we not only have learned this thing, but then we kind of get to revisit it. So talk to me about this process of writing this book. Like what do you feel like has been birthed in you and that you're bringing forth through your words, through this book that the Lord's prompted you to write?
I feel so honored that God would use my story in any way. And to be honest, even as I started to write the book, I had a lot of that imposter syndrome. Who am I to write this? I'm not a financial expert. I'm not the person who still has it all together. I've made a lot of mistakes. And yet I felt from the very beginning that he wanted to use my story. So there was a lot of this self-doubt about, is this even any good? Does it even matter? Is this just complete and utter nonsense? But I just kept putting the words on the page and praying through it, and literally praying every time I was writing, like, God, what do you want me to say? And so it's been like so many other times in my life where I just walked forward blindly in faith, knowing that if God asked me to do it, who am I to decide how he wants to use it? And it's been fun on the other side of it then to hear people say that these different things have spoken to them. And I'm just amazed because again, I felt like, is this even worth
Yeah.
anything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm just putting a highlighter because, and I think we talked about this, Heather, when we first connected. One of the core values that we have in this conversation of overwhelmed to overcomer is courage. And
Yeah.
everything you just described is courage. This is it. I could
Yeah.
just highlight all, if I had a yellow marker right now, I just highlight your words as they came out of just, I felt that imposter syndrome. Is this any good? But I kept putting words on the page and I
Yes.
kept praying. Really, the
Yeah.
order matters. I kept praying and I kept putting words on the page, is
Yeah.
what you said. And that is like, so, okay, friend, whatever you are thinking, do I even have it to offer? That's a sign you're on holy ground, I think.
Right.
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 I'm just going to declare it. That's a sign you're on holy ground
Yeah.
when you're outside of your zone of comfort and competence. You're being stretched.
Absolutely.
And
One of
then
my one of
exactly
my
what you
past
said.
yeah, one of my passages in the Bible that has always meant so much to me is the story of Moses. It's in Exodus 4. And Moses spends way too much time arguing with God, like, do you know who you're talking to? I stutter and I'm not confident and I can't do these things. And finally, like God has enough and says, do you not understand that I made you who you are? I know what you're capable of. I know what you're not capable of. Now go and do the things that I've asked you to do and the things that I've asked you to say. And we get so caught up in trying to, like, why are you asking me, God? Who am I to do this? And I've found over and over again that when I've seen God at work the most is those times where I felt out of my depth, where I felt like unqualified. But it was that realness and the authenticity of just speaking from, I don't know everything, but I know what God has done in my life, and that's where He's done His work through me.
Okay, so you've mentioned your story a few times, and I think that's so beautiful. Like, all we have to offer is ourselves, but when he's working through us, that's enough, right?
Hmm.
And so tell me your story. What is it that you want to offer to other people based on your own experience?
Yeah, so one of the stories that, because there's so many, but the one of the stories where we saw God at work is that my husband and I, I came out of college with with a lot of debt from student loans and those sorts of things, and then I got my first credit card when I was 18 and didn't know anything as a college student. They know what they're doing when they send those in the campus mailbox. So we made a lot of mistakes early on, and lo and behold, we find ourselves in our 20s in early marriage. And we went out for a date to get away from, yeah, I mean, just a night to just be with and just the two of us and away from the kids. And the whole time we're driving to the restaurant, I felt like Robert was just out to pick a fight. It was one of those nights. Like, and finally I turned to him like, what is wrong with you? I thought we were out to have a good time. And it just seems like you're in a grumpy mood and like you just want to pick a fight about everything. And he pulled into the parking spot at the restaurant and he said, I'm just so overwhelmed. He was the person that wrote the bills out and paid the bills. And he said, I'm just so overwhelmed. I just feel like we've gotten way in over our heads and we're just one emergency away from complete devastation. And I don't the pressure is killing me and I don't know what to do about it. And I knew that we had some debt, but I don't think until that moment I understood the weight of it or where it was heading. So we were like sitting in the parking lot of Applebee's and I was just kind of stunned and all like it was like my eyes were open to how big the problem was. And so I said, I don't know what to do to fix it. I don't know where we go from here, but all I know to do is to pray. So right there, we prayed, and it wasn't a long, articulate prayer or anything like that, but it was just kind of, Jesus, we've made a mess. Help us fix it. So we went from there, we went from the parking lot into the restaurant because we'd still not learned our lessons about how we should not eat out. But we
True
walked in,
statement.
but we walked into the lobby and I saw a friend and his wife who I hadn't seen in quite some time. And I said, "Hey, what are you up to? Where you been?" And he said, "We just came from this workshop at our church all about financial peace and surrendering it to God. And it's the best thing we ever did. And we used to fight about finances. And now I highly recommend you do this." And he's talking. And I mean, my husband and I, our jaws must have hit the floor because, because it was such a clear and immediate answer to our prayer. We like to this day, I still feel like it's the quickest and clearest answer to prayer I've ever had. And it wasn't as if there was this like sudden check that came in the mail that fixed everything. But we saw from that moment on, just as we were aware of it and open to what God wanted to do, that He put the people and the resources and the fruits of His Spirit into our life to help us get back on the right track and live according to His ways and follow in His footsteps.
Mm. So one thing I found really profound about your book that I love is when you talk about, you were just saying following his ways, walking in accordance with his footsteps, like really following the Lord.
Right.
You start in a very special place we were talking about. Where is that? Where does it all begin and end?
It all begins, I think this is what you mean. You could say, you could edit this, but it all starts and ends with surrender. I just know that so often we want to do things our own way, or I'm a person who likes to be in control of things. I like to grab the bull by the horn and run with it. And I found that when I try to do things on my own, or I get out ahead of myself and too busy to pay attention to God, that I make a royal mess of things.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, the Father is saying, "I love you and I care about you, and I want to take you down a different path, not so that I can manipulate you or control you or make life less fun. I want to guide you because I know the most fulfilling path for you." And so I found that through surrender that I find peace and I find joy and I find self-control and all those things that I need because my way will never be good enough. He knows what's best for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what I meant. Sorry, I don't
Sorry,
always
that's
ask like I like every once in a while I ask a question where I know what answer I want, but I'm like, that's not super fair to my guests. So,
it's okay.
I was gonna be sober. But here's what I wanted to highlight though is like so many money resources out there, it's strategy first.
Right.
And even the Christian resources, they're telling you what the steps are to take so that you have the money in the bank. But
Right.
you take it and you say, no, it's the Father first. It's
Right.
seeking first His kingdom. And then our outcomes actually won't all look the same either, right?
Right. Right. And it's not that tactics are not important or techniques. Really, once we said that prayer, we had to go back to the basics. We did all the things that were even new to us, of like envelope system and only spending the cash we had. So tactics are important, but when we start with the tactics, we'll go a little bit, but until our hearts change and we reprioritize our life and get our priorities straight, we'll keep slipping into the same old patterns. It's sort of like declaring on New Year's Eve, today's the day where I'm gonna get my diet together. But until we really like have that aha and that drive within us to change, we'll keep slipping into the old destructive patterns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What I've noticed in myself, and I know I was talking to you about this a little bit beforehand, is I've been in a season where I'm focusing less on earning and shifting into how can I. And I don't know why this was such a light bulb moment for me, but my coach that I work with was like, if you spend less, you can make less. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
interesting. And even talking about when you spend $1, you don't have to make $1, you have to make about $1.25 because of taxes. And so, even though I have a background in finance and corporate law and all of that, that was still somehow in my day-to-day life rather revolutionary.
Right.
Well, in response, my answer has been, well, I'm going to budget and that's part of my job. And that's, I'm going to help us spend less money. But I've become kind of the little militant, the boss lady and not so fun about it. There have been times where I'm like, but we can't do that.
Right. Right.
And so there's the
Yeah.
ditch again, right? Because now I'm in control and I'm trying to manage it. And it's just, and which part of why diets fail is it's not coming from a heart of stewardship. I want
Hmm.
to take care of what the Lord has given me. I want to be able to be on the floor playing with my children, my children's children's children in my 80s. It's like, I need to stop eating trash,
Right.
and same with our money. We get in this control. Okay, so ditches on either side.
Yes.
Where do we find this peace, joy? I mean, I love that you have everything couched in the fruits of the spirit. How do we get there?
Yeah. Again, like I just keep coming back to surrender, because his path is going to be different depending on your circumstances and where he wants to bless you and how he wants to bless you and how he wants to use you. So I'm glad you brought this up, because I think too often we can look at this message as just those who are in debt. And as long as we're not in debt, and as long as we haven't made silly decisions in that way, which I had, then we're all good. But we in my line of work, we often talk about saving, and at what point is saving and preparing hoarding, because we have gotten to a place of, I need to prepare for every possible disaster. And make no mistake, like, yes, saving is important, but at some point we have to realize that there is never going to be enough in the world that we can rely on that provision. God is our provider and he's our comfort, and we can do what we can and be smart with our money, but ultimately he is the source of provision. He's also the source of our worth. Like, we can buy things and try to present an image and keeping up with the Joneses, or we want to dress our kids in a certain way, or make sure that they're involved in every single activity so that they're entertained 24/7 and never feel bored. But is that really what we want for our kids? Is that really what will truly bring them joy in their life? Or do we teach them that we have boundaries because we need time to recoup and we need time to rest in Him? So I think that the money just has a way of getting a hold on us in all kinds of different ways. And it starts by saying, God, I give this over to you, and I want you to examine my heart, search my soul, and show me what is not like you and how I can become more like you.
Mm, yes. I think herein lies one of the complications around financial health specifically is, with other kinds, and I can think of other vices that go hidden as well, but oftentimes you start to see the wear and tear on the outside, if you're not taking good care of your physical body, for example. But because we have access to debt, we can look great on the outside and be a hot mess on paper. And
Hmm.
I worked with a lot of individuals who made large salaries, but a large salary is not the same as a healthy, income statement, as a healthy financial statement. To actually have the wealth, to have the investments and the leveraged income and all of these different things that you start to build when you are buying assets instead of liabilities. And so you said something, you talked about like just the shame that surrounds wealth and surrounds
Yeah,
money issues. And I love what you said in the book of like, I had trouble even getting testimonials from people. And yet
right.
everybody's got a money story. It's just that we don't share it.
Yeah,
So
we
what do we do? What do we do with this shame?
yeah, I truly believe, I've come to believe over my lifetime that one of the biggest lies the enemy tells us is that we're all alone and we're the only one dealing with this. And we sit in that shame of, I can't possibly talk about this. I can't let people see. And the problem is, we get deeper into the darkness. We find ourselves in a hopeless state where we don't know what to do and we don't know how to fix it. And so part of getting out of that shame spiral is just even acknowledging what the issue is. And in my experience, when I've got to that point, not only am I acknowledging the problem and inviting God in to help me, but I'm also inviting community, and I'm inviting being real and authentic. I think of like the mom who just sits home and is by herself and is struggling with whatever the case might be, financial depression, whatever, and thinks, I can't possibly let others see what's happening in my life and in my heart and in my home. And as long as she keeps that hidden, she won't find freedom. But it's in finding and being true to friends, it's being open in a church, it's being open to inviting um, friendship and correction and accountability and partnership. It's inviting all of those things that brings us out of that hole and into wholeness.
Mm. Oh, out of that hole and into wholeness. That's so beautiful. So take me here, Heather. You have this beautiful thing that you say in the book. Money is spiritual, and so our money problems require spiritual solutions. And
Mm.
then you draw our money issues through the lens of the fruits of the spirit. Can you take us through that? What does that mean money is spiritual?
Yeah, I think that often our financial decisions and how we view and manage our money comes down to what kind of relationship we have with the Father and what kind of barriers we're putting up. So often, just starting from the top with love, um, we uh, we may think, what does love have to do with money? And yet we are basing our worth based on our possessions, or we're making decisions on how I can be cared for and loved and provided for. And when we truly understand how much that God loves you and cares for you deeply and wants to have a deep relationship with you, we come to a place where we realize it doesn't matter what other people think of me. It doesn't matter how much stuff I have. Stuff is never going to fill that void that only God's love can fill. So
Mm.
when we feel that, when we truly experience the love of the Father washing over us, not only does it change our priorities, but it also changes how we see money to be used. How can I use this to pour out that love to others? How can I live with open hands to not that money buys love, but we can certainly use it to show it. We can help provide for someone in need and meet their tangible needs, whatever they might be.
Oh, and what struck me when you were talking, and isn't this just how it always goes, is when we don't know the Father's love, and then we're trying to kind of fill ourselves with the things of this world to, to fill that vacuum that's ultimately left because only He can satisfy. Then how often do we end up being like, and Lord, we're strapped for cash and we're in debt, and we actually create we perpetuate that feeling of unloved because we haven't received it. But as soon as we receive, then it's
Hmm.
like enough and more than enough. And all of a sudden, now we're satisfied,
Right.
right? I,
Right.
I love the movie Say Anything. So my people have heard me say often enough, walking around feeling satisfied, which is a line from that
Yes.
movie. Sorry, nerding out for a second. But hey, Mama, let me ask you a question. When's the last time you gave yourself some white space? I am not talking about a trip to the bathroom alone or even the grocery store. When's the last time you had what I like to call some no one needs me time? For homeschooling entrepreneurs, time like this isn't a luxury. It's actually a key component to a healthy business, homeschool, and family life. So, if you're ready for your next respite, whether it's you by yourself, you and your spouse, or a family trip, join us at our peaceful haven, Just Like Paradise, located on gorgeous Oak Island, North Carolina. This 3-bedroom house is just a short walk to the ocean and nearby restaurants. It has a screened-in back porch with fireplace that is to die for, hot tub, and even a fire pit if you're feeling ambitious. Book through the link in the show notes, and then you have a unique discount code, podcast100, to get a $100 discount on your stay as a thank you for being one of my listeners. Get your next getaway on the calendar today. We're satisfied, and now we don't need to go buy the ice cream or the pear. I mean, when I was working at the law firm, it was not uncommon to just swing by Rack Room and buy a $70 pair of shoes, or my husband and I would go away for a weekend because I was unhappy in my job, and it was this
Right.
band-aid over this wound. And then until I understood, oh, these actions are actually perpetuating my bondage.
Hmm.
Now I can't leave because instead of putting that money to work, instead of saving it, instead of investing it, um, now I have that much less set aside, and
Right.
so back to the mines again.
Yeah.
And when I realized, what if there was just enough? What if I believed it was enough, and that I could
Hmm.
go home, and it didn't look quite like what I wanted to yet, but that's okay because
Yeah.
the Father has me here
Right.
until He doesn't anymore, you know.
Right.
So,
And then you just walk on through the fruits of the spirit, and it's true of all of those. Like I store up or I save up or I buy because I want to have peace and I want to know that I'm going to be okay and I'm secure and nothing's going to happen to me that I won't be caught off guard. And realizing that's our stuff was not meant to do that. God is the good shepherd who takes us by the hand and walks us beside still waters and green pastures. And our stuff, we can never have enough stuff that will buy us peace. If that were true, every person in Hollywood and everyone on Wall Street would be so at peace and so full of joy. And we know that's not the case. And on the flip side, I have known people who had nothing, absolutely nothing, by my standards, and yet they had everything because they had the peace and joy of the Lord.
Mm. Oh gosh, our stuff was not designed to do that. That's right. And I think about like there's been a leaning into prepping and there is, and again, can that be stewardship? Yep. Totally can be. Can it be hoarding? Yep. And what's the determinant? How do we know where we are? It's the Father. Once again,
Right.
like we cannot checklist our way into peace. We
Right.
have to go to him and go, okay. And I think too, it's these little, I think about I've been doing Pilates lately and they have you do these small movements. And it's like, lift your heel up and down. I'm like, for the love. Like, this is really hard. But it's the same with the Lord. It's these little tweaks where it's like, oh, I actually don't need two of these. It's time to gift the next, or it's time to just look. And again, it's relationship, right? I'm not going through and going, okay, too much stuff, I'm getting rid of everything, too little stuff, I've got to get more. It's like it becomes more and more these little tweaks of, okay, do you really need that? Oh,
Right.
I'm holding on to it because I feel, oh, I love this book. What if one gets ruined? Then I've got another one and then I'll
Right.
feel better, right? And it's just these tiny little things where we're in our flesh and we don't even realize. But the more we do this practice that you're talking about, then we can be that much more attuned to his heart to hear what the next invitation is.
Absolutely. I was just at a conference and I heard this couple. It was at a conference called Celebration of Generosity. It was incredible. It was all these people that were there, just their passion was, how can I be more generous? So I heard this couple and they have young kids, and they felt independently that God spoke to each of them independently, that they had saved and built up college savings when their kids were under the age of 10, so that their kids would never have to worry about how they were going to go to college. They'd put everything towards it and they built that up. And they both felt God prompt that they needed to give that money away and use it for now in a ministry. Now, I would never advise anybody to do that. That's terrible advice.
Yeah.
Except that they knew God was asking them to do it. And they felt like God made it clear to them, I will take care of your kids when it's time for your kids to go to college. But right now, I need you to trust me and use it for the need that's right in front of you. I thought that is like, whew, I don't know if I could do that, but they just knew that this thing that would completely go against human wisdom was what God was asking them to do. And that's what we're called to do, is to just trust him and know if he asks us to do it, he will provide a way.
Yes, that's right. Oh, and I think too, we won't, and I'm just going to say this right now, Heather, you would do it. I'm going to speak that over your life. Okay.
I'd like to think I would.
Right. And it's not because of like, oh, look at me. But when we cultivate that daily moment with him, the grace to do it was only there because it was time for them to do it.
Right.
And and so right now you're sitting here not called to do that. And so you're like, I could never do that. But and this is one of the things we talk about in this podcast, when the moment comes where he's like, leave your job or move across town or whatever the thing is.
Anna, I have to tell you, it's like, God is telling me this, because I did do this and I didn't even think about it until this moment, because I used to work for a Christian university, and I knew that God was moving me elsewhere. I knew that I knew he was moving me elsewhere. And yet at the time, my son was, I think, 2 and Emma was 7. And one of the benefits of working there is that they would have their tuition covered for free. And I knew that, gosh, I could get emotional thinking about it. I knew
I'm getting emotional just hearing you talk.
One of the gambles of walking away from there is knowing that I was not only making a change for myself, but I was making a decision that would affect my kids.
Yeah.
And here we are, all these years later, and Emma was looking for college, and we're looking at it and saying, how in the world could we do this? And lo and behold, she got a scholarship that was the exact amount that I would have gotten if I had stayed at that place all those years ago.
Oh my God.
And man,
Heather.
This is another thing. I have to say another thing that just, we have to put these stones down, these faith stones, to remember how God has provided us in the past, because we can get so up in our worries and how will God take care of my kids, and how will he take care of my husband, and how will he take care of my aging parents, and all these things. And it's those faith moments where we can look back and say, I know he'll do it because he's always done it. I've seen it over and over again.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Someone said to me once, you borrow my miracles until you have your own.
Yeah.
And that's what the scriptures are, right? It's just this catalog of miracles. And then we get to live our own lives, and we get to have these moments. And it's like, you did the thing with him. And then it's like, we forget. We forget,
That's a long time ago. What have you done for me lately, God?
I know. Do you still love me? And it's just, I mean, that's what's so important about coming together as a body, is we share our stories. And when you see someone else go, are you serious? That's incredible. Then we're like, oh yeah, that is incredible. Because, we wear the clothes every day. I've lived that story for a couple of decades now. It's not so exciting anymore. And then we hear someone's reaction to it, and it just bolsters our own faith. And we're like, yeah, he loves me that much.
Exactly.
Because that's always the question, right? Does he love me?
Yeah. And if I had one thing to just, I want people to know, is that he loves you so much. And if you care about it, he cares about it. And if it's holding you in bondage, he wants to free you from it. So whether it's debt or greed or fear or whatever the case might be, God is not standing there saying, look what a mess you've made. You made your bed, now lie in it. He's standing there saying, well, I want to help you out of there. Will you just let me hold your hand?
Yes, that's it. And there was a period of time where I felt like the Lord just spoke to me over again. This was in my 20s, just as a young woman. Just let me love you. Let me love you. And I know I was telling you this story before, Heather, but it's just these little things. I had a friend that did a lot of thrifting, and they had they were living lean. They were a homeschool family, one income, and she would just celebrate every time I came to her house. The kitchenware the Lord would give her. I told the Lord I wanted a big soup pot, and then I walk into Goodwill, and there's a soup pot that's usually, and she even knows what it retails for. It's usually $120, and here it is for $2. And I remember I got kind of a little sort of something with the Lord, where I was like, you don't do that for me. And like, overlooking the fact that I didn't go to Goodwill. So how is he going to do that for me?
I think you said this. It's hard for him to provide for us when we've already bought it on Amazon.
Exactly. And that's the thing, where it's like, I didn't give him room. And it's one of the things that has been such a beautiful celebration in this season, where I'm slowing down. And I went to the thrift store with the kids. We have this old, that we got it a million years ago, and it's warped, and it's all these different things. This little coffee table, and that coffee table was kind of one of my offerings before the Lord, of like, living the rich dad, poor dad life. I'm going to buy assets instead of liabilities, and we're going to live with this janky coffee table that matches nothing, and it's just horrible. And it's had like the warped wood meant the cups would fall over. I mean, it's just that kind of thing. And so then I started researching, well, what if I refinish the coffee table? And I came up with this whole idea for how to refinish it. And of course, it was going to cost like $50, and maybe I can figure it out. Maybe I can't. And then we go to the thrift store and find this coffee table, like glass top, and really pretty, kind of dated, but it matches our stuff because we're kind of dated as a family. And I was like, well, I was with my daughter. I was like, let's just see what it costs. And at half off, it was $25. And I was like, Lord,
That's amazing.
And it was just I mean, could we afford a $200 coffee table? Yeah. Like we could
Mhm.
make the choices to create space for that, but I would have missed the blessing. And there's plenty of times where we do that, where we're like, okay,
Right.
it makes sense. We're going to go ahead and purchase this. But it's been so fun to like, it's been 10 years since I had those times with that friend where she'd show me all of her soup pots and everything. And I
Yeah.
still remember how
Yeah.
she just looked like a tended woman,
Yeah.
just tended by the Father. And I was like, I want that. And I think we need that. We need to give him room,
Right.
rather than, oh, you like that book, Amazon. And it's like,
Right.
we're not even done with the conversation before we bought it. And
Right.
I have more than and then the books sit on my bedside table and they
Right.
don't get read. And that's another $20. And, it's just like, what if I just asked, Lord, I'd like to read that book. How do you want me to read it?
Yeah.
I want to learn about that. How do you want me to learn about that? Like we get to bring him everywhere.
Yeah. And you add on top of that then like the responsibilities we have as moms, because if we like what we're modeling to our kids, what you showed your kids in getting that coffee table and waiting for it, because let's be honest, our kids are not going to immediately be in the same financial state that we are now after well into our careers, so modeling to them, it's okay to wait and it's okay to be without, and just because we have it doesn't mean that it should be spent. So those are all really powerful lessons that our kids need to know.
Oh gosh, that's so good. And it changes the relationship too. Like as you were talking about that, I'm like, yeah, my daughter owns that coffee table. Like she loaded it in the car because we were out of town when we got it. So then we had to bring it back, right? She loaded it in the car. She brought it home in the house by herself. She's 9. I'm like, oh, you're carrying the glass. Okay, you're carrying the glass. Okay. And she's so proud, and she was so proud to show daddy. And it just that's not what happens when we just, like
Yeah.
just instant gratification. There's something really powerful that's built by the waiting, by the trusting,
Yeah.
that I think we've lost sight of. And your book invites us into that so beautifully, Heather, because it starts with him first. That's the
Mhm.
point, that's the beginning, that's the end, and all points in between.
Absolutely.
Oh, what a gift. Well, leave us here, Heather.
Mhm.
Okay. What final so wherever we are in our money story, plenty of money in the
Mhm.
bank, living paycheck to paycheck, buried by credit card debt, so grateful for the abundant coffers that we have all the way filled up and we feel like we're rocking it. What is one thing that each of us, no matter where we are, need to carry forward after this conversation?
Yeah, I would just say again that there's hope for your situation. You are loved. You were not meant to do this alone. God wants to walk hand in hand with you, and He wants to bring people into your life to walk that path with you as well. There is hope for your situation, and lean into Him and see where He'll take you.
Oh, it's so beautiful. Thank you, Heather. I know my people are going to be excited to connect with you. So how can they do that?
So there's the best way to find me is to go to heatherday.net. That's my website, and I have a blog there, and I have all my socials linked from there. I would love to be connected with you. I'd love to hear your stories, and I'd love to hear how God speaks to you through the book. But yeah, heatherday.net. And then if you'd like to learn about Barnabas Foundation, my the organization where I work, that's barnabasfoundation.org.
Wonderful. Heather, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
All right. And friend, thank you so much for listening. Look at that. Again, we are at the feet of the Father, just where we belong. So grateful for this conversation. Heather, thank you. And thank you for listening. Until next time, just know you've got this because He's got you. Friend, thank you so much for listening to this most recent episode of Overwhelmed to Overcomer. So listen, the whole idea behind this mission is that when we endeavor to be brave with our lives, we need to do it together. Belonging is key. So if you resonated with the message from this episode, share it with a friend. Do it together. Thank you again. And never forget, you've got this because He's got you.